any organization that wants to be focused on customers, I think is going to pay attention to design and really provide that resources. And I would say that design isn't just, as designers, I think, we're thinking about that every day, but really a great user experience is important in every aspect of the organization, right? Like we're all at some level, we're all need to make sure that we're having a great user experience, whether you're in support or whether you're in sales or marketing. Like all those things need to work together to make sure that you are focused on the customer every day. So I think, like as an organization, it's really critical that that you're focused in every group on design and providing a fantastic experience. Well, I think like what we've sort of been talking about is kind of the business metrics and the business cases around a lot of these things and how you can tie that back to design. But I think as designers and design organizations, it's really about the behavior that you want to influence, right? And the outcomes that you want to achieve with that behavior, right? So, I think you can always tie those to the specific business metrics, but thinking about not just in terms of, retention, right? Or in terms of revenue or some of those hard business metrics, which I think are really important, but thinking about what's the purpose or what's the outcome that you want to achieve? What customer problem are you solving for those users? And sometimes that gets lost a little bit because I think we're so focused on, and rightly so, like on revenue and churn numbers and everything else. But when you are solving the customer problem, those things are directly feed into some of those hard business metrics. And I think it's super important to be focused on that. With small teams, it's really important to really, when you think about like being user-centered, right? Especially like we are, working at Lead Genius, working on Lead Genius together, to really make sure that everyone is contributing in that process of being user-centered, right? And talking with customers regularly. Like it's a team effort. It can't just be, like designer go off and you talk to some customers and then we pitch it over the wall and translate it. It's so important that everyone is actually involved in that process in some degree.
You did a really great job at like building out this panel of users that you were talking to. Was this built through the proxy system, going to conferences, kind of talking to people in industry? Is that how you built that panel, or were you able to get your customers to give access to their customers, to the end users?
Yeah, it was a multi-pronged approach, certainly. And so like we looked at sort of all avenues, and we did have access to some of those end customers also. We had prompts in the product as well, to sort of recruit people in that way. And I think that was really helpful. We used Marvin software for a lot of that collection as well. So that was really handy. Talked about, a team effort, and sort of everybody should have kind of user experience. Like everyone in some ways is a user experience person, right? Regardless of role that you're in. I think, we all know those games of telephone, right? Where we're talking and things get lost in translation. Well, the same thing happens in organizations where you're not allowing designers and product people to connect with customers directly, right? Things get lost in translation, even if it's out 5% the first time. Maybe it put in a report and then people interpret it a different way, and suddenly, you're losing 20-25% of the context, and you're not able to ask kind of the deep probing questions that you might need to as a designer who's actually designing the thing that you're going live to, or you're going to go live to your customers with. That's why I think it's so important to actually work together on those things, and to really just hear those things firsthand and be able to ask probing questions. I think that's really critical. We hear about people like, just talk to your customers, right?
Talk to your users.
Talk to your users, right? It's got the t-shirts. Yeah, I want one of those t-shirts.
Yeah.
It's so important to do that. And I think like universally you hear about people talking about that. But so many times, like I think people don't have a plan for what you're going to talk to them about, right? Or they'll just like, put a single mock-up in front and be like, well, what do you think, right? And I think like even if you're not an expert, and I've worked with a lot of really great researchers before, if you don't have access to a research or something, it's just some of the basic steps of just like, how are you going about asking questions in a thoughtful way? How are you preparing for that interview? Even if you don't have to come up with 100-page document, process document, but going in with a plan, right? Be purposeful, like write out your hypotheses. So, we've tried to do in the past, and what I try and focus on now is, are you hypothesis driven, right? So thinking about what are your hypotheses going into that process? What do you want to get out of it? And then, really leaving space for people to answer open-ended questions is really important. I mean, the product can't be all things to all people, especially at a smaller size. And I think a lot of
even at bigger companies, if you design for everybody, you're not going to design for anybody. As a designer, as product people, the best we can do is clarify and kind of bring more into the focus of the vision that comes from the company vision. It's hard if that's the best you can hope for, is clarification of company vision, or changing the company vision or the group vision into a product vision, transforming a company or group vision into a product vision. That's the role. But if there is no clarity, enough clarity on the company vision or the group vision, it's hard to kind of translate that into a product vision, and then hard to take that back to the stakeholders and say, here is what the vision is going to look like, because it's just not clear, because the clarity hasn't come from the group leaders or the other company leaders.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's important, but also, design can play a role there also. Are there things that design can do to represent their point of view? And collaboratively with the product team or the rest of the team, are there things that they can contribute to keep people excited about what that future vision might look like? There's a lot of design is visual also. So how do you portray that to the rest of the organization? Are there ways that you can creative ways that you can do that to get people jazzed about what you're shooting for?
So in some ways, you're like translating the obscure company vision or a group vision into kind of more kind of clarified product vision, and get people excited about it and get stakeholders excited about it. That's a big part of your role.
I think design can help lead those conversations too. I think design, what's great is design for a lot of organizations, and an increasing number of organizations, has a seat at the table now. And that's really amazing. I guess, wield that power responsibly. There's a lot of really great things you can do.
With great power comes great responsibility, and designers
right.
definitely have a lot more influence into the organization today than they did 10 years ago.